From Olympic City and the home of Pikes Peak, this is the Automotive ADHD Show. Oh yeah, and we are rocking it for another weekly edition of the Automotive ADHD podcast. Matt West here, hanging out with you. Beautiful weather here in Colorado right now. It's December, and it's 60 degrees, and I don't really know what to do with myself because it's 60 degrees in December. We don't have that very often here, but no, I did do some really cool stuff, actually, with that weather. But before I get into that, some of the things we're going to be talking about today is how Toyota is going by the way of Netflix. Yeah, they're doing subscription services, and this is really stupid, but I'm going to talk about that. Also, there is now a V8 Tesla. In fact, there are a few of them. I'm going to talk about how that works, why that's cool. I mean, it's obviously cool. It's a V8, it's a Tesla. And then also going to be touching base on some more of the infrastructure bill that I've talked about in the past. There's some new updates on that. Want to talk about those. Lots of good things going on. And but before I get into that, ladies, gentlemen, Subaru SVXs, the first thing I want to hit on is I actually followed my own advice. Yeah, can you believe that? No, I don't give you advice unless it's something that I've done before. And last week I recommended as a solution to the failing driver's ed system in the U.S., track days. Yeah, racetrack days. Because, look, the driver's ed system clearly isn't teaching people how to drive cars. They're teaching you how to read road signs. They don't teach you how to drive cars. So, and I said, you know what, the best way to do that, the best way to learn that is track days. And they don't have to be expensive. I mean, autocross events, SCC autocross events are like $40. And so I took my own advice. I went out and I ran an autocross. I've run them in the past before, but it's been years since I've done an autocross. I've done a lot of other racing in different sanctioning bodies, a lot of just open lapping track day things. So there's all sorts of flavors of track day, but autocross, good stuff. Ran it out at PPIR, Pikes Peak International Raceway here in near Colorado Springs. And on top of that, the weather, again, December, 60 degrees. Oh my God. This doesn't happen in Colorado. That's why I'm so excited about it because, yeah, we don't get that very often. And I will say that the track day, it went well. I ran it in my old crusty AE86, which is now lighter thanks to rust. As the saying goes, in God we trust, in Toyotas we rust. Yeah, old Toyotas are known for the rust. But hey, you know what? The car held up great. It ran well. And I won't say I was first in my class because that wouldn't be true. No, I'm not the fastest driver out there, but I wasn't last, which means in my mind, I win. In my mind only, that is. But hey, good stuff. Again, taking my own advice here. And if you want to get into something like that, maybe it'll inspire you. Go out there, go run it. I mean, the nice thing about autocross is it's like $40. And they usually run them in like big parking lots or on airstrips. It's kind of going around a course built out of cones. Now, this was cool at Pikes Peak International Raceway. They used the actual road course as part of the autocross course. So that was kind of different, kind of cool. But again, $40. You learn your car better than you can anywhere else. It's safe. Everyone around there is super friendly. People are willing to give advice about all sorts of things. And again, my opinion, best way to learn, cheapest way. Autocross too, I mean, it's one of the safest forms of motorsport. It's the easiest to get into. You don't need a race car. There's plenty of people out there in their daily drivers, just sending it, having fun. It's actually, low speed too. It's just technical low speed stuff. So it's easy on the car. It's easy on brakes. You're not going to usually break anything out there. So very good stuff. Now, hey, speaking of old Toyotas and going into new ones, one of the main topics I want to hit on today is Toyota, right? I've always been a big fan of Toyotas. My first car was a Toyota. I had a first-gen 4Runner, an old 80s 4Runner back when they were basically just Toyota pickups with back seats bolted in. And loved that car. Of course, a big fan of my AE86, despite all the quirks sometimes. Very big fan of it. But here's the thing, Toyota, I like the cars they make. I've been around tons of Toyotas. Lots of my friends have them. Even the show Open, the car sound you hear at the beginning of every show, that's a buddy of mine. That's his Mark IV Supra. So, I like Toyotas, okay? And in the past on this show, I have also talked about why I like them as a company. I like the CEO is a pro motorsports guy. He's all for motorsports. They want to save motorsports. They want to save the internal combustion engine. These are all things as a car enthusiast I love. But that said, I am not above calling them out for kind of BS stuff when it happens. I won't be blinded by my love for their cars when the company as a whole starts doing kind of questionable stuff. It's like a good friend, right? You love them, but they do something dumb and you got to call them out on it. It's your duty as a friend to be like, hey man, that was kind of stupid. And that's what I'm doing for Toyota here, because they have announced that in their newer models, 2018 and up, you will now need a reoccurring monthly subscription in order to use the remote start feature. What? So yeah, Toyota is basically taking a page from Netflix's book by doing subscriptions. And they're taking a page from obviously other automakers as well. This isn't just Toyota that's doing this kind of thing. Lots of them are doing it. It's a trend, and I think it's a very stupid trend in the car business. And okay, and so the details on this, the remote start feature, is where you have your key fob, of course, and you push a button and it remotely starts the car, which is nice, especially in the wintertime if you want to, get some heat going in there before you get in the car. That's all around good. And I will say aftermarket remote start systems are possibly the stupidest thing ever, especially when people put them in manual transmission cars. But we're not talking about the aftermarket stuff. There's a reason the factories, by the way, don't offer remote start in manual transmission cars. It's a very dangerous reason, but it's a very good reason. That said, with the remote start feature is tied into Toyota's connectivity package, you could say, which includes other things. It's $8 a month. Oh, it's only $8 a month. Well, the fact that it's $8 a month, that's not a lot of money, but that's not the point. The point is you might have just spent $50,000 on a totally kitted out, Toyota TRD Pro Tacoma or a new 4Runner or something. That's like 50 grand right there. That's a lot of money. And, with used car prices as they are, even used, you might be finding nice ones for more than 50 grand, which is crazy. So you spend 50 grand on a car, and then they expect you to spend another $8 a month. What? $50,000 isn't good enough for you. You want another $8 a month? Of course they do, because, sure, they're in the business of making money. And again, like I mentioned, this is not new to the car industry. Tesla is famous for this. If you want their self-driving package, you got to pay extra for it after the fact. Now, granted, that's not quite a subscription, but Tesla is famous for that. Mercedes has also gotten into this business on some of their European market cars that have a really cool feature, which is rear wheel steering, where it's able to, turn the wheels only by a few degrees, not as much as obviously the front wheels, but it's able to turn them to help improve low speed turning radius, but also high speed handling. And rear wheel steering is not a new technology. I mean, Nissan was doing it on their Japanese market Skylines, the GTRs back in the 90s. But that said, Mercedes took that feature and said, this is really cool. Obviously, they said this with the German accent, but they said, this is really cool. And we're going to charge more for it. And you got to pay for it every month. And if you don't pay for it every month, instead of having 10 degrees of steering in the back, you only get 4. Yeah. I mean, it's a mechanical feature of the car being limited by a subscription service. I get when you have a car and maybe it's got a built-in, data hotspot, right? A 4G hotspot so you can use Wi-Fi in there. I get that. I get a subscription for that. But when it comes to actually restricting mechanical features on a car, that's when it gets to the point of being ridiculous, in my opinion. Because, and I can relate this to, for instance, the video game industry. Maybe maybe you are a fan of video games, or you got someone in your family who is. It's really popular for modern video games to come out, kind of half finished. And then they'll say, well, if you want to play more of the game, you need to pay extra, or you need to pay this subscription service or a battle pass or whatever as they call it. If you want to enjoy the game more, you got to pay more and you got to do extra stuff on top of the base cost of said video game. And the problem with that is you, again, find games that come out that are, not done yet. The developer says, we're going to, not really finish coding this. We're not going to put our best effort into it because we'll just come out with a release, an upgrade to it later. and charge people for it. It's the same idea. When you bridge that over to cars, it's the same thing. And you get cars that have honestly half-baked features, and I'll use Tesla's autopilot system as an example here. It really wasn't ready to go right away, and they said, well, it's not ready, but we won't have it in the cars yet. But we'll do it so we can upgrade the cars to it with an update. Which, from one standpoint, I get it. It's kind of cool that you have this car and you can upgrade it with a feature digitally, and now that enables a new mechanical feature. You don't have to go to the dealer to do it. It's over the air. I get that. Yeah, there's the convenience factor of that. But I think what would be more important than that convenience factor is having the feature fully fledged and fully developed at the release of the car. Okay, does that mean it's delaying the release of the car? Yeah, but when it's a safety-related feature like that, it should delay the release of the car until it's ready. I mean, that's just my opinion on that there. Now, is Toyota's remote start feature anywhere near the levels and intricacy of Tesla's autopilot? Like, I get that they released it as sort of a beta, that can happen. Now, this is a remote start feature on a car. This is something that most modern cars have. They all have, but no, Toyota here is saying, yeah, we need to nickel and dime you another $8 a month. And there's plenty better things. Again, I get if you're buying a $50,000 car, $8 a month isn't much to you, but it's stupid. Still, the principle of it. And this boils down to also big tech, you could say, limiting things, right? And restricting people because they might not agree with you. For example, let's bash on Tesla a little more. They have been known to blacklist people, with paywalls sometimes, or not even paywalls. That's not the right way to put it. But they have been known to, like, say if you get a non-Tesla part, a non-OEM part, and you fix it yourself. You didn't do it at the Tesla service center. You didn't have their techs do it. They have ways in certain cases to know that you have changed something, that you have modified it, and they're going to say, well, that's cool, but you don't get to have any of these cool features anymore, even if you're paying for them. But because this is a feature that you would pay for to enable, we can also ban you from having it outright because we don't agree that you worked on your own car. This has happened. It's well documented. It's happened before. It's even happened to, about a couple of years ago, there was a guy who set one of the Tesla Cannonball EV records. So he did the Cannonball run, but it was an EV. And what he discovered after doing it, now that record has been broken by someone else since then, but what this guy discovered after doing that was that Tesla banned him from their supercharging stations. So they took, his car, it's probably got a unique identifier, think of it like an IP address, and they said, that car, yeah, don't charge that. So now none of the superchargers work on that car because they disagreed with something he did with it. That is not up to a manufacturer to do at the end of the day, because at the end of the day, you've bought the car, right? You have purchased the car. You haven't purchased the right to merely use the car at the manufacturer's discretion. You own that car. So yeah, sure, a company could say, we don't agree with you modifying your car or doing this. We're going to ban you from having this feature. I'm not saying Toyota is going to do that with remote start. They're not. I hope they're not that pedantic, but they could be. They're charging $8 a month for it after all, right? But so to me, it boils down to sort of a freedom aspect of the fact that, you own this car. Why do you have to pay for a mechanical feature to be enabled? Why do you have to consistently pay? No, that means you don't own it. If you have to pay monthly to keep a feature running on the car, you don't really own that car. You're just using it at Toyota's discretion. Sure, legally you own that car. You have a title and your name's on that title. But really, do you own it? Legally, yes, but morally speaking, no. At that point, you don't. I think, you should be able to buy a car, have all the features. Now, if you didn't option, for instance, the remote start feature when you bought the car, sure, it's not going to have it because you didn't buy that. But if you bought it and it has that feature, it should continue to have that feature. So I think the automotive industry sees, is really much applying the business model of big tech now. Think Facebook and Netflix and all of these, doing subscription-based services. And the automotive industry, of course, being in the business of making money, says, yes, we should do that too. But I disagree. I think that is the wrong way to go. And of course, the only way to combat that is don't buy a new car. It's pretty easy to not buy a new car, especially right now, because, hey, chip shortage. Buying new cars is hard. And I've talked about that in great detail on previous episodes. So, hey, without, this is one of those things that, Toyota, come on. Get your stuff together. This is clearly not the right way to go about it. And I do hope that someone in the aftermarket figures out a way to bypass this. I'm all for that. People are like, well, you can't bypass it because you didn't pay for it. It's like, I don't care. At that point, you own the car. You can do whatever you want. That also, breaks into more of right to repair and right to modify. That's, again, a big topic in all of technology right now. So, yeah, there you go. Toyota, get your stuff together. I will continue to love and cherish my own old Toyota chassis because they are old and they are full of rust, and I am fine with that. And again, as a whole, I do think Toyota's doing a good thing when it comes to motorsports, but got to call them out on this. What can I say? Hey, next segment, going to be talking about some other really good things, like a V8 Tesla. I bash on Teslas. I bashed on them a lot during this segment. Well, I'm going to talk about something really cool. That's next.
And now for how things work with an engineer.
Rotary engines. Regret.
And that was how things work with an engineer. For more of how things work, go to patreon.com/throttlewarrior.
Yeah, here we are rocking it for the second half of the show. Matt West here, hanging out with you. I want to thank you for joining me. And of course, those car sounds courtesy again of Josh Maldonado. That time, a recording of his cousin's car, B20 Turbo, fully built. Really cool, sounding awesome. His cousin, by the way, Juan Feliciano. Very cool car. I love it. I love high revving Hondas. I love high revving Hondas even more with turbos. How cool is that? By the way, send your car sounds into the show. Email me, matt@throttlewarrior.com, or you can post them on the Automotive ADHD Facebook page. I have a post there pinned to the top of the page, and then comment below with a video of your car doing something, anything cool that makes noise, just as long as you don't get yourself arrested doing it. And by the way, as I get more of these car sounds, this is just kind of a out there thing that I'm going to do soon, but not yet. I'm going to be, I'm thinking about giving away something like a gift card at random to people who do send in their car sounds. So like every week I'll pick from someone who has sent their car sounds in, and maybe something like a $25 AutoZone gift card or something cool. That's in the works. That is going to be, of course, backed by the Patreon as well. The Patreon does make that happen. So, of course, if you would like to support that, go check it out. Now, last week I talked about how the driver's ed system is broken in the United States. And here's something new I just found that proves it. Yeah, it proves it. So the DMV in California was administering a driver's test to a new driver who was driving a Tesla. Why am I talking so much about Teslas? It's almost like I like them, but I don't. I don't. It's just it's coincidental here. But this new driver was doing their driver's ed test in a Tesla. And Tesla is kind of famous for their regenerative braking system, as are a lot of electric cars now. But Tesla is really known for it. And that is where you let off the gas, or what would you call it in an electric car? I don't know. But you would let off the gas. And without hitting the brakes, the electric motors decelerating, creating resistance, are actually going to charge the battery, but that does create a resistance and actually slows the car down, which is cool. Think of it like engine braking, on a regular combustion engine, especially in a manual. You're in gear and you're decelerating, and the engine kind of free spinning without fuel is going to act as sort of a compression brake. The same idea, but the brake the regenerative braking on Teslas is really aggressive. You can stop the whole car with it. So this person was doing their driver's ed test and managed to do the whole test, come to complete stops, all of the above, without touching the brake pedal. And they failed the test. Otherwise, having passed it with flying colors on that one thing, the driver's ed instructor there failed them on their test, citing that they didn't use the brakes, which sounds dangerous and horrible unless you actually know how these cars work. And this just goes to prove that the system is antiquated, it is underfunded, and it is a government bureaucracy, further supporting why the driver's ed system, in my opinion, is broken. Now, the good news there, that person did get that decision by the California DMV. They did get that repealed, so they ultimately pass the test. But come on, that shouldn't be happening now. That shouldn't be happening. And speaking more of those Teslas, I know I hate them so much. I don't actually hate them. I do like the cars. They're fun to drive. They are cool, but I do like to clown on them a little bit. But no, there is another Tesla that is better in my opinion than all others because it has a V8. Yeah, this is interesting. So the YouTube channel, Rich Rebuilds, he's been a big Tesla guy for a long time. And he's very well known. You might have even seen the video, but what's really cool is he went to great lengths to V8 swap a Tesla Model S. Yes, you take out the electric drivetrain and put in an LS3 V8 out of a Camaro. It's cool as hell. And reason I'm talking about this now too, he's this guy, Rich, he's been, posting about his build for months, but he's finally finished it. He got it done in time for SEMA just a little earlier this year. And it's making big rounds on the internet. It's very cool. It's very well done too. There was another YouTuber who also swapped a V8 into a Tesla for views. It was a prank YouTube channel, and they did it very haphazardly and just kind of got the engine in there and got it running, which, whatever. The Rich Rebuilds one, he calls it ICE-T, by the way. ICE for internal combustion engine, and then T for Tesla. ICE-T, get it? Yeah, it's cool. That car is on a different level when it comes to actual build quality. I will say that. It's not just built for YouTube clicks. Very cool setup. So what he did is he took an LS3 V8 and shoehorned it into a Tesla. But so what I find very fascinating about this is some of the engineering that went into this, because you have to take a car that was not meant to have an engine. It was meant to have an electric motor and a battery pack, and then you have to put an engine in it, put a transmission in it, put a rear differential in it, put all sorts of this stuff, connect it together, and actually have it work. You hear about engine swaps all the time these days. I'm going to K24 swap this, LS swap this, Hellcat swap a Miata, whatever. That's cool. But those are all cars that were intended from the factory to have some semblance of an engine and a transmission. Not the Tesla, which is, amazing that basically this was done in a man's garage with some friends, and they put the LS in there. They had to cut open the floor, weld in a transmission tunnel. They had to make all sorts of custom stuff from exhaust headers, have to be custom made because no one makes a Tesla swap exhaust header, which maybe we should. Maybe that's something, we should start converting these electric cars to run on gas. But no, and it is very cool. And the work that goes into it and the work that went into also making it kind of look stock. From the outside, you would never know this car to have a V8 in it. It looks like a regular old Tesla, which is cool. With, some aesthetic mods. It's on air ride suspension. It's got some nice wheels on it. That's very cool. And I think it's just the funniest thing to be able to say, yeah, there's this cool car. Everyone likes it. It's electric. And we put a V8 in it. That's just cool. It's a very cool thing, and I do want to see more of this. It makes me wonder what other hilarious things have not yet been not EV swap, but LS swapped. Is it pretty much an LS living in literally anything? I think how's the saying go? And in due time, all things will get an LS. Like by the end of the universe, all things will be LS. But no, very cool. I would totally drive a V8 swap Tesla. Also, they put in a sequential manual transmission in it, which is very cool. Sequential transmissions are fantastic. And if I can get my hands on one of them and put it in something I have, I will be a happy person. So very cool stuff right there. Now, hey, the next topic, the next segment, I'm going to be talking about the infrastructure bill. There is some new stuff on this, and it's surprising. And it's one of those things as car enthusiasts we should be leery of. I'll tell you about it here coming up in just a minute.
Every day, thousands go without the ability to buy necessary and life-saving parts. Parts like turbos, coilovers, and wheels.
I'm Steve, turbocharged BRZ. It doesn't run because I can play with my connecting rod through the hole in my block.
Project cars sit unfinished, waiting for parts, collecting dust.
My name is Todd, and I bought a rotary.
It's okay, bro. We'll swap it.
but no more. You, yes, you, can make a difference. For as little as $5 per month, you can put an end to Project Cars suffering and support your favorite podcast. Patreon.com/Throttle Warrior. Donate now and receive special perks. Sponsored by Autoholics Anonymous and the Speed Council.
All right, and we are back for the third half of the show. Matt West here, hanging out with you to talk about cars. Yeah, I talk about cars because, and I talk about it to you. Hopefully it's mutually beneficial. My friends are sick of me talking about cars to them. That's why I'm doing this podcast. Now, that said, those car sounds you just heard are courtesy of my buddy Wesley Kagan. That is his Porsche 928, European imported, too. It's not a U.S. market car. And very cool sounding. It's a 928. You never expect it to sound like that. It's super choppy, super cool. And of course, Wesley Kagan, as well as a accomplished YouTuber. He's got 100,000 plus subscribers. And happy to say that he will be joining me on the show next week to talk about all sorts of fascinating things. Going to be talking about Koenigsegg, free valve technology, and how he was able to stick that to a Miata. Yeah, that's really cool. So you want to definitely tune in next week. Going to have him on the show. That's going to be really cool. So yeah, good stuff right there. Hey, so the infrastructure bill has been kind of in limbo for a little bit. I talked about this in great detail probably about 2 months ago, right when we were starting to really hear about it. If you do want to hear that, tune into episode 5, I believe. That is, scroll back through your podcast feed. It will be there. Now, and I promise to only talk about politics. I make this promise to you. I will only talk about politics as it relates to cars. This is a car show. This is not a political show. My political affiliations, and as well as yours and anyone else's, are pretty much irrelevant here, except, again, when it comes to cars. And, so this infrastructure bill is, backed by our president, and it includes far too many things to go into detail with here. And a good chunk of them aren't car related at all. They're related to all sorts of other stuff. Now, my take on it was specifically the car related thing where they wanted to introduce a EV tax credit. Okay, so EV tax credit, the idea is, give people a discount, a subsidy provided by the government on electric vehicles. That sounds all, nice and wishful, right? It's going to help the environment. They're pushing this as an environmental thing. Problem with it being is it is exclusionary. It includes EVs only built by union labor in the U.S., specifically United Auto Workers unions. And again, only American cars. And this is a problem because those who argue for this bill saying, it's for the environment. We need to do stuff, and the government needs to promote things to help the environment when it comes to transportation. Here's the thing: the environment doesn't care about unions one bit. I mean, if that were true, then why does the bill care about unions? Come on. If the environment doesn't care, then the bill shouldn't care either. But because the bill does, clearly means that it is motivated by some other reason than what they're saying, which immediately makes that sketchy in my opinion. Now, also, the update here I want to give you on this is it passed the Senate and it is now in Congress, and it's kind of been in limbo there for a while. And, bear in mind, this isn't something we get to vote on as the voting public. It's not an issue like that. It is one of the biggest spending bills in American history, like ever. And yet the tax-paying public doesn't get to vote on it. Anyway, that's getting too political. That said, Canada now is threatening the U.S. with retaliation should this get passed, because what's happening is, again, the EV tax credit is exclusionary. So if you are a consumer, and I'm very pro consumer choice, you should honestly be able to go buy whatever you like, which is, me being a diehard gearhead. I love gas cars. I love burnouts. I love muscle cars. I love JDM cars. And I still think it should be totally up to you to go buy an EV if you want to. I should also be able to go buy a cool, tuner car if I want to, right? The thing is, that, again, with this being exclusionary, you would only, if you wanted this EV tax credit, which could be up to $12,000, which is substantial money, especially if you're talking, about families and people who really don't have a ton of money, but they want to get into a newer car. They want to get into a safer car. They're kind of on the fence with this EV thing, but $12,000 off of the MSRP would really make it worth it for a lot of people, right? Well, of course, if you take that same person, right, who, maybe is not the best on money right now, but they need a new car for the family, and you tell them, well, if you buy XYZ car, if you buy this car, you'll get the tax credit because it's made, by union labor, by pretty much that it means just Ford, GM, and Dodge, or Stellantis, semantics there. But that means you're basically limited to those. If you wanted to buy an EV made by Toyota, which is still made in the U.S. Toyota manufactures all of its American market cars now, pretty much all of them, in their plant here in the U.S. So that is still supporting American labor and American jobs, but you wouldn't get that tax credit. So you take that same group of people who would be on the fence about buying this car anyway and tell them, well, you could buy this one and get $12,000 off of it, or you could buy this one and you won't. Which one do you think they're going to pick? Obviously, they're going to pick the one that's $12,000 cheaper, and that's going to clearly bias business towards specifically the big three American manufacturers, even though, again, Toyota, Subaru, pretty much all these other manufacturers now have U.S.-based manufacturing. So yeah, that's a problem there. That's not very pro-consumer choice. That is an issue. Now, Canada, again, I mentioned that just a little bit ago. Canada is threatening to retaliate here in some way, shape, or form, whatever that means. But they are saying that this is a problem because a lot of cars are made in Canada. A lot of U.S. market cars are done there. Canada has a lot of automotive manufacturing that it does. For instance, my $800 Jeep Wrangler that I put a stroker motor into, that was built in Canada, of all places. Yeah, it's a Canada Jeep. So, and Canada still builds a ton of stuff. Now, here's the kicker, right? If you wanted to be, if you wanted to buy a, Ford EV of some type, but it was made in the Canada plant, for instance, just using this as a hypothetical, say any American car, but it was made in the Canada plant. Guess what? The EV tax credit wouldn't apply to it. It would be $12,000 more expensive. So yeah, this whole thing doesn't make any sense, honestly. And if you like cars and you like driving cars, this is something that's important because at the end of the day, this is going to change the realm of used cars we have to pick from. Not everyone's going to be buying a new car. But if this really swings the market and creates a big influx of certain cars that, there's tons of them around because of this tax credit, that limits our options too as secondhand buyers, as car enthusiasts wanting to pick these cars up a little cheaper, a couple years used, go have fun with them, right? So that affects all of us, even if you're not the guy buying this car new. And now what's interesting is Elon Musk, as much as I disagree with some of the things he says, also his haircut. His haircut lately is very disagreeable. Anyway, he surprisingly being, part of Tesla, you think he would be all for this, tax credit. Now, granted, Tesla doesn't operate with union labor, so they wouldn't get it anyway. But if this bill were positioned that it also included non-union labor, they would be. But he said, no, we don't need it. Yeah, surprising to hear that from him. Here's a sound clip of him saying that.
Honestly, I would just can this whole bill. Don't pass it. That's my recommendation.
What about the support, though, for the charging network? I mean, there are parts of this bill.
No.
All right. He says, can it? Also, a funny thing, too. Later in the interview, which he was being interviewed by the Wall Street Journal, he did have this to say about additional funds in the bill being used for manufacturer R&D.
All right, but there's some other good things in this bill that some would argue. I mean, a lot of money earmarked for R&D. Would you want to put that towards something?
No.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, from Elon Musk, weird haircut and all. There you go. It's this bill is interesting, and again, wherever you stand on the political spectrum is fine. And I would say, as a potential compromise, if this bill were to get passed, at the very least, this needs to be changed to include all things. Now, I would be of the opinion that this shouldn't be in there at all. On top of that, because it is using taxpayer money to fund these EV tax credits. And it's like, well, I pay tax on my cars. And if you drive a car, you also pay for this. So it's like, why would I want to pay more so other people could buy these cars and undermine the cars and the things I like. It's very weird, right? So, regardless of where you stand politically, this is one of those topics that should be addressed. Because it's very questionable. It very clearly to me seems like it's based off of lobbying from the big three auto manufacturers, and it's very exclusionary. And exclusionary things like that limit innovation. They do. If you're limiting this EV tax credit to only EVs, well, what if a new technology comes out? Or what if a new, variant of a hybrid comes out that's actually better for the environment than the EVs? Well, it wouldn't get the tax credit. And because it doesn't get $12,000 knocked off of it, no one's going to buy it. And then we're all going to be driving these other cars that are actually less good than this other, hypothetical technology, right? So things like this are exclusionary. They're not consumer choice. They're not at all for car people, I will say. And they're not honestly there for people who drive cars in general, which is pretty much everyone. Come on. They are ruining innovation for other interesting ideas by fixating on one thing and saying that is the definitive answer. So, hey, there you go. I promise not to get any more political than that. This is a car show. This is a show about burnouts and all sorts of fun stuff. But I do think it is important every now and then to talk about these political issues as they pertain to cars. So yeah, there you go. So this bill, by the way, is going to be going through Congress now. So it's going to be up to our elected representatives there to figure that stuff out. But I want to thank you, by the way, for joining me for this past half hour on the show. That's a half hour that you can't get back, unfortunately. I am sorry to say that, but hopefully it was good. Remember to subscribe to this podcast wherever fine podcasts and this one are downloaded. Also, remember to subscribe to notifications on whatever platform you are using. That way, when I post this episode or this show, which I do every single week, you'll get a notification to check it out. And next week, it's going to be really exciting. My buddy and automotive madman, also automotive YouTuber, Wesley Kagan, is going to be joining me on the show to talk about some really cool things. You definitely want to tune in then. It's going to be great. And I will see you next time when I go to Hazard County to perform some slightly less than realistic jumps in an old Dodge. Yeah, I'll see you then.